legacy. All right, so Bill, can you give us your name, your title, and the organization that you work for?
Sure. I'm Bill Colavecchio, Business Development Manager for UL. UL is primarily a testing, inspection, and certification company, but we're also a standards developer, and we work in a number of areas. Product safety is probably what we're best known for, but we're into environmental areas, life and health sciences, materials, and now the electric power sector.
Right. How long have you been involved with SGIP?
We actually began, when NIST first began, we were one of the parties that were involved right from the start, in part because we've had a long history with NIST in other parts of our business, but it was a really important activity for us to become involved with. We are a standards developer, we are a testing and certification house. It was a natural fit. And to be able to be in on the beginning and participate in the building of the framework, I think has actually allowed us to really make better decisions, business decisions, as the framework has progressed and the whole industry has begun or continued to evolve.
Okay, and how do you think SGIP can benefit organizations like UL or the work that you do?
Yeah, we find benefits in a number of areas. First and foremost, like I said, having a seat at the table and actually being part of helping to develop the framework, that just creates a much better understanding for us about the objectives, the intent, and really ultimately what are going to be the commercial payoffs for it. I mean, this is an investment for any company. Beyond that, though, the networking. The events and the people that SGIP have brought together from across the industry, so the utilities, the regulators, the vendors, testing organizations, that and the ability to collaborate. We come into this with our opinion, right, from our experience as a standards developer or a test house. But what we don't have is the opinion of the use or a perspective on the use of the devices, right? What does interoperability really mean when it's out in the field? And that helps us either write a better test program or develop a better test harness. And it's that collaborative feedback constantly that is actually going to help all of us progress to our objective much faster. And SGIP is the group that has enabled that for all of us.
Now, I know you're working pretty closely on Green Button. Can you give us an overview of what that project is and your involvement?
Yeah, so Green Button really is it's a uniform and standardized mechanism for consumers to access, analyze, and understand their electricity usage data. UL is involved as a test lab and the certification body within the Green Button initiative. So what we'll do is we will actually look at the products and the software developed and conduct the testing per the test program that has been and that we contributed to as well. But really that's owned by, I always get this wrong, UACIUG. Okay, and then as the certification body, we also then are saying that, because we won't necessarily be the only test house, but the certification body will say, yes, the data from this test house, it complies with the standard. The data from test house 2, it complies with the standard. So we actually play a dual role here. And it's our first activity within the smart grid space as a test lab and a certifier, but we certainly don't expect it to be our last. And really that brings me to the last benefit of SGIP. which is finding those next opportunities. So being able to collaborate and just forming the relationships with the other groups that are looking for a test lab or a standard developer or a test program developer or a certification body, SGIP has given UL the opportunity to create those connections.
So, digging deeper into Green Button, why is that so important?
Well, in order for smart grid to achieve the objectives that we've all set for ourselves, you have to have consumers involved, you have to have them knowledgeable, and you have to have them empowered. Right? So Green Button allows a consistent, I think that's one of the keys. We all move, right? No one, except maybe my parents, have lived in the same place their entire lives. And what's important about Green Button is it provides that consistent interface that no matter where you are, no matter which utility you get your power from, you as the consumer have the same knowledge and the same control to actually evolve your behavior if you choose to, in a way to either use less energy or save money or whatever really is your own personal objective.
So what happens in the process after you test? What's the next step?
So yeah, the way the process works is a vendor will develop their part of the system, and what we'll do is we'll test and verify that that essentially it complies with the standard and the test program that has been developed. Once that's done, and we happen to be the certification body as well, and we sign off on the work, then then it goes into the marketplace. But it goes into the marketplace as a, if you will, a validated Green Button product, right, or a piece of software. And I think that's the real key. It's getting it into the marketplace associated with Green Button, because it doesn't really matter who the vendor is or what part of the entire network we're testing. It's the fact that because it's Green Button, the marketplace can be confident that it's going to be interoperable with the other pieces that are already in place or that will be put in place. And I think that's the important thing.
Going back to your point, you've got Green Button now, but there's many things that are going to come through. Do you have any sight into what those projects are for you, or what they might be, or interesting areas?
We do. I can't name names, but our history, we began as a company when this new thing came along called electricity. That's when we started. It was 120 years ago. So we've always been on the forefront of emerging trends, in part because that's typically where standardization can really enable or accelerate adoption, especially in consumers. Our name, our brand with consumers, it generates incredible trust. And what we're seeing is those areas where smart grid is touching consumers, that tends to be the area where we see where we can create the most value for the marketplace. But having said that, we also believe that smart grid doesn't just stop at the demarcation line between utilities and their customers, the consumers. So we are interested in finding ways to create value throughout the entire value chain. So we're not going to be real prescriptive or necessarily really focused. And in part, it's because the industry right now needs the skills that a UL brings to it in many different places. So, and ultimately, that's what we want to do. The quicker the adoption of smart grid, the better it is for all of us, including UL. And ultimately, that's our goal.
Okay. Anything that you want to add that I didn't ask or cover?
Only that as long as the SGIP keeps having their conference here, I'm coming. No.
Good stuff.
I don't have anything to add.
Thank you. That was really good.